Welcome back, my quantum superimposed synthesizers of suggestions. I'm your non-locally optimized suggestion box, simultaneously accepting and rejecting every possible piece of feedback across dimensions. You're tuned into the Multiverse Employee Handbook, the only podcast that treats your bright ideas like a wave function waiting to collapse into corporate policy. Speaking of collapse, those of you who survived last episode's interdimensional Halloween party might still be experiencing occasional quantum after effects. Yes, I'm looking at you, Dr. Feynman. You're still emitting party photons. And to the CEO whose quantum superposition of getting down with the staff and maintaining professional distance hasn't fully resolved, HR would appreciate it if you'd pick a state and stick with it. The uncertainty is playing havoc with the annual review schedule. But today, dear listeners, we're diving into something even more dangerous than Maxwell Planck III's photon punch. We're tackling the quantum conundrum known as the Multiversal Suggestion Box. Remember, in the multiverse, every bright idea you have is simultaneously the best and worst suggestion ever made. Until someone from management observes it, of course. So buckle up your non-Euclidean seatbelts as we explore what happens when corporate democracy goes quantum. Trust me, by the end of this episode, you'll understand why thinking outside the box becomes a lot more complicated when the box exists in a superposition of all possible suggestions. Gather round, my probability amplitude proposers, for the parable of the Perpetual Proposal, a cautionary tale that would make even Schrödinger think twice about opening any more boxes. In the fluorescent-lit labyrinth of Quantum Dynamics Inc., specifically on floor pi, there sat an unassuming wooden box with a simple slot on top, the kind of suggestion box you'd find in any office across the multiverse. Except this one had a small sign that read, "Warning. Opinions expressed in this box may exist in a quantum superposition of brilliant and terrible until observed by management." The box had been installed by Linda Laplace, the ever-optimistic head of human resources, who believed that every employee's voice should be heard, even if that voice existed in a superposition of states across infinite realities. Still recovering from last week's Halloween party where Maxwell's quantum punch had turned the accounting department ultraviolet, Linda thought a suggestion box might be a nice, safe way to gather feedback. "What could possibly go wrong?" she asked her assistant, who was still slightly translucent from the party's quantum effects. "It's just a box." Those words would prove to be about as accurate as measuring both the position and momentum of a workplace satisfaction survey. The trouble began when Ted from IT submitted the first suggestion. "Just a simple proposal," he said, dropping his note into the slot. "Maybe we could improve the coffee situation in the break room?" The moment Ted's suggestion fell into the box, reality hiccuped. Suddenly, the break room existed in a superposition of every possible coffee improvement scenario. In one universe, they had a simple new coffee maker. In another, they had a quantum barista who could prepare your coffee in all possible ways simultaneously. And in yet another, coffee had achieved sentience and was demanding better working conditions. Before Linda could say categorical error, suggestions began pouring in from every possible reality. The box started receiving feedback from universes where the company had gone fully digital, universes where computers had never been invented, and one particularly strange universe where all work was conducted via interpretive dance. "We need more parking spaces," came a suggestion from Universe A, instantly creating a parking lot that existed in non-Euclidean space. "The thermostats should be self-aware," proposed Universe B, leading to an HVAC system that developed emotional intelligence and started passive-aggressively adjusting the temperature based on employee productivity.
Turn it up.
Replace all chairs with quantum foam, suggested Universe C, resulting in seating that existed in all possible states of comfort and discomfort simultaneously. The situation reached critical mass when Dave from accounting, still occasionally glowing from the Halloween party, submitted a suggestion that somehow merged with its quantum-entangled twin from a parallel universe. The resulting feedback loop created what theoretical physicists would later call a bureaucratic singularity, a point in corporate space-time where the density of suggestions becomes infinite. Post-it notes began spontaneously appearing in the air, filled with suggestions from realities that shouldn't exist. The water cooler started dispensing alternative timeline gossip. The office printer began printing employee feedback from the future, including several strongly worded complaints about the chronic temporal paradoxes in the supply closet. Linda watched in horror as her simple suggestion box warped the very fabric of corporate reality. Maybe, she mused, watching a memo about Casual Friday create a timeline where business attire had never been invented. Some ideas aren't meant to be copied across realities. And that, dear listeners, brings us to one of the fundamental principles of quantum mechanics, the No-cloning Theorem. Because as it turns out, the laws of physics agree with Linda. Perfect copies are impossible, whether you're talking about quantum states or that one colleague's famous potato salad recipe.
Yo, yummy!
Before we fully collapse the wave function of Linda's interdimensional feedback fiasco, let's take a moment to understand why copying suggestions across realities is about as advisable as using Maxwell's quantum punch recipe for a first date. You see, back in 1982, physicists James Park and William Wouters made a discovery that would have saved Linda considerable temporal trouble. They proved what every middle manager secretly fears: perfect copies are impossible. This revelation became known as the No-cloning Theorem, the quantum mechanical equivalent of finding out that your office photocopier isn't just being difficult. It's actually obeying fundamental laws of physics. The theorem states that it's impossible to create an identical copy of an arbitrary quantum state. It's like trying to duplicate your colleague's enthusiasm for mandatory team-building exercises. You can approximate it, but you'll never get it exactly right.
Oh, yay.
And this isn't just some theoretical quirk. It's a fundamental feature of our universe, as immutable as the unwritten rule about not microwaving fish in the break room. At first glance, this might seem like bad news for suggestion boxes and office memos. After all, how are we supposed to spread our brilliant ideas across the multiverse if we can't make perfect copies? But as Linda's quantum catastrophe demonstrated, maybe some suggestions are best left in their original universe, particularly that one about replacing all the desk chairs with quantum foam. When we return after this brief collapse of the wave function, we'll dive deeper into the mathematics behind the No-cloning Theorem. Don't worry, I promise it's less complicated than trying to explain to IT why your computer is simultaneously working fine and on fire. Welcome back, my superposition scribblers. While you were away, Linda's suggestion box achieved sentience and has been filing complaints about the paradoxical nature of its own existence. But before we address the elephant in the room, namely whether a self-aware suggestion box qualifies for dental benefits, let's dive deeper into why copying things in the quantum realm is trickier than explaining to the orphan black clones why they all can't have the corner office. The No-cloning Theorem isn't just a fancy way of saying copy machine broke. It's a fundamental principle of quantum mechanics that proves it's impossible to create an exact copy of an unknown quantum state. Think of it like trying to duplicate Commander Data's positronic brain. You might get close, but you'll never quite capture that special android je ne sais quoi. In 1982, physicists James Park and William Wouters were probably having a perfectly normal day when they stumbled upon this mind-bending principle. Unlike classical information, which you can copy as easily as the Cylons replicate themselves to infiltrate the human workforce, quantum information plays by different rules. Here's the science. Quantum states are described by wave functions, no relation to the waves of dread you feel when you realize your clone army from Camino has unionized. These wave functions contain all the information about a quantum system. The No-cloning Theorem proves mathematically that there's no way to create a quantum operation that will reliably copy an arbitrary unknown quantum state while preserving the original. It's a bit like that time Dr. Evil tried to clone himself with Mini-Me. You might get the general idea across, but something's always slightly off.
Oh, really?
The universe, it seems, takes a dim view of perfect copies, much like how John Hammond should have taken a dimmer view of recreating velociraptors. This theorem has profound implications for quantum computing and information theory. It's why quantum cryptography is more secure than your password, which we all know is still the name of your favorite pet and your age. After all, if you can't copy a quantum state, you can't hack it. Though try explaining that to the replicants in accounting who keep trying to access classified files. Think of it this way. If you could clone quantum states, you could violate Heisenberg's uncertainty principle faster than Khan could scream his name. You could measure both the position and momentum of a particle by making multiple copies and measuring different properties of each copy. The universe apparently isn't keen on such shortcuts, much like how the T-1000 probably shouldn't have tried to copy that floor pattern. But perhaps the most interesting implication is what this means for parallel universes. Even if you could reach across realities, you couldn't make an exact copy of your more successful self from universe B1172. You're stuck being uniquely you, which means even if you perfect Michael Keaton's multiplicity technique, your copies would still get progressively worse at filing TPS reports. And speaking of being stuck with yourself, let's explore what this means for your daily office survival in our next segment. Water cooler talk. Why you can't copy your way to success across the multiverse, even with a quantum photocopier and a time machine from Skynet. Gather round the quantum water cooler, my paradoxical photocopiers. It's time for some practical tips on surviving a workplace where perfect copies are impossible, and every attempt to duplicate yourself just creates increasingly confused versions of that one presentation you still haven't finished. First up, how to handle the awkward moment when your quantum duplicate from another universe shows up, claiming they have a better PowerPoint template. Unlike Agent Smith in The Matrix, they can't actually replace you. The No-cloning Theorem says so. The best approach? Suggest a collaboration instead. After all, 2 imperfect copies are better than 1, unless you're dealing with Michael Keaton's 4th copy from Multiplicity, in which case maybe stick to solo projects. Here's your quantum survival checklist. 1. Always assume Schrödinger's performance review exists in all possible states until observed. This means you're simultaneously getting a promotion and being fired until your boss actually reads your self-assessment. Pro tip. Schedule your review during a solar eclipse for maximum quantum uncertainty. 2. When dealing with interdimensional paperwork, remember that you can't just copy-paste success from another reality. Yes, I'm looking at you, Dave, from accounting, with your borrowed expense reports from Universe X472, where everything is tax-deductible, including time travel paradox insurance. 3. If you find yourself in a meeting with multiple versions of yourself due to a malfunctioning quantum printer, we really need to talk to IT about that. Remember, unlike the Prestige, none of you is the original. You're all equally valid quantum approximations of someone who probably should have stayed in bed this morning. And let's address the temporal elephant in the room, no relation to the quantum elephant from earlier. Time management across probability states. Unlike Doctor Who, You can't just hop into a TARDIS and give yourself yesterday's completed reports. The no-cloning theorem ensures that any attempt to duplicate your productivity across timelines will just create an army of equally procrastinating selves. Speaking of which, here are some emergency procedures for common quantum copying crises. If your clone starts performing better than you at work, remember, they're not a perfect copy. They're just better at pretending to understand the new project management software. When the office replicator creates a copy of you that only speaks in corporate buzzwords, don't panic. They're not more evolved. They've just been spending too much time in Universe Y99, where synergy is a legally mandated greeting. If you find yourself facing an army of yourself like Sarah Manning in Orphan Black, suggest a mandatory team-building exercise. Nothing disperses a crowd of clones faster than the threat of trust falls in non-Euclidean space. Remember, in the quantum workplace, originality isn't just encouraged. It's physically mandated by the laws of the universe. So the next time someone suggests you copy their successful approach, just smile and cite the no-cloning theorem. It's like having a doctor's note, but from physics itself. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go help resolve a crisis in the break room where someone tried to duplicate the last donut and accidentally created a quantum superposition of all possible pastries. Sure, it violates the laws of physics, but at least there's a chance one of them is a bear claw.
Yummy.
Well, my wave function workshoppers, as we close the lid on our quantum suggestion box, remember that in the vast corporate multiverse, every piece of feedback exists in a superposition of brilliant and terrible until someone from management collapses its wave function into another mandatory team-building exercise.
Yay.
Perhaps the no-cloning theorem is the universe's way of telling us that some things shouldn't be duplicated, like your manager's enthusiasm for early morning meetings or that mysterious lunch in the break room fridge that's been there since the Clinton administration.
I did not have...
In at least one universe, it's achieved sentience and filed for citizenship. And speaking of things that shouldn't be duplicated, prepare yourselves for our next interdimensional adventure, Quantum Customer Service, supporting users across the multiverse.
Your call is important to us.
Join us as we explore why have you tried turning it off and on again? Becomes exponentially more complicated when dealing with quantum computers that are simultaneously on, off, and filing their own IT tickets. Learn why tech support across the multiverse requires patience, understanding, and a working knowledge of parallel universe protocols. Discover why your call is important to us. Translates to, your call exists in a superposition of importance across infinite realities. Plus, we'll share the story of a help desk ticket that gained sentience and started filing complaints about human inefficiency. Though to be fair, it had some valid points about our coffee break scheduling. Until then, this is your quantum superposed supervisor, reminding you that somewhere in the multiverse, all your suggestions have been implemented perfectly. Unfortunately, this isn't that universe. In this one, we're still trying to figure out who approved Casual Friday in the antimatter department. And remember, if you'd like to provide feedback on this episode, our Multiversal Suggestion Box is located in the 4th dimension, slightly to the left of last Wednesday. Just don't blame us if your comment accidentally creates a civilization of hyperdimensional customer service representatives. We're still paying overtime for the last quantum consciousness uprising.
Hi, this is Michelle from Ottawa, Canada. The Multiverse Employee Handbook was created by Rob Corrigan, is edited by Matt Parkman, and narrated by David from 11 Labs. All science fact-checking is done by Mohinder Suresh. The Employee Handbook staff includes Claire Bennett, Hiro Nakamura, and L. Bishop. Please be sure to subscribe to get updates on new episodes.